Good morning, y'all, and welcome to DnDaily number 79. I am Gregory, and this is 1 in 20 D&D, where I will be sharing all kinds of great stuff around Dungeons & Dragons and tabletop role-playing games. I have a passion for them, as well as gaming in general, and I like to share anecdotal stories, tips and tricks, as well as news and insights into the gaming world on a daily basis through this vlog here. So if that's something that interests you, please do me a favor and click on the subscribe button in the corner. You'll see the little 1 in 20 logo. That button will let you subscribe easily to the channel, and you will be able to stay in tune with what we are talking about here, sharing in and hopefully adding to the conversation. I was talking yesterday about planning and the importance of planning for both how it reduces stress and also how you can use it to make yourself feel more confident when you're getting ready for your games. Before I get into today's topic, I'm going to do a quick recap and update for the Critical Role Kickstarter. They are currently at 9,175,000 and climbing, over 67,000 backers with 9 days left. I cannot wait to see this Vox Machina animated series, as well as the one-shots that come along from the stretch goals that they reached in this Kickstarter. I think we have all kinds of great stuff in store from Critical Role for us. I'm wearing my Electric Beargaloo shirt today, and if you have not seen their one-shots, Marisha Ray as the DM running they're playing with what they call the High Bear Nation. It is a super fun and silly romp, and go check those out through Critical Role or Geek and Sundry, and I guarantee you will have lots of entertainment. So, topic for today that I wanted to address. I was listening to the Chain of Acheron this morning, MCDM and Matthew Colville, their new session. They're on episode 10, so session 10. And I was realizing how they have this very natural, relaxed pace. And I thought it's so interesting because it's very different than a lot of the other games I listen to, such as Critical Role, or Dice Camera Action, or Sirens of the Realm. For sure, it has a different feeling than Adventure Zone, and it got me to thinking about how important pacing as well as tension and how that tension applies to pacing can be, how it can be another tool in the tool bag of the DMGM. So I want to talk about that today, and before I even do, it's almost like there's a question of like, is it even important? And I would say on a certain level it's not, yet it can add a really interesting element to your game. So when I'm watching Chain of Acheron, they have a very laid-back approach to the game. They're a bunch of geeks like I am, and they're playing D&D the way they play. Matt is telling an interesting story. They are a bunch of mercenaries. They have a ranking system where the players are all the senior officers, and they have junior officers as well as foot soldiers that they basically are responsible for and can give orders to and so forth. So there's some really fascinating gameplay involved that's very different than any other D&D game I've seen, and I really love it. But they don't, even in combat I've noticed, they're very willing to let the players figure their stuff out. Like if they need a moment to like look up how that ability works, or read how does this spell work and so forth, they are okay with letting it kind of flow and take its own time, take its course. It's very cool, very interesting, way different than someone like Christopher Perkins. Chris Perkins, when he's running a game, if you don't know exactly how something works, he'll sort of just ask you how you want it to work and then deliberate from there. Now, he also has a vast knowledge of the game mechanics as well as the history and the lore and all these other things. So he knows most of the spells pretty well. So he has that advantage of years and years of experience, but not all of us can draw on that. So sometimes you just wing it, and that's sort of what he does within the parameters of the structure of the game, which is kind of cool. So the dice camera action pacing is interesting because they do lots of role playing, and there are many times where the players are just interacting with each other. But one thing that Chris is amazing at is, as soon as there's a moment, like the slightest lull in the game, in the pacing of the game, as soon as there's the slightest lull, and even if there's not, even if things are sort of progressing, there's conversation happening or whatever, Chris is really good about interjecting plot twists or challenges or stuff. Like the shit hits the fan, pardon my language, in his games all the time. And it gives this amazing tension to the game, which suits their kind of theme, because that's sort of the players, that's sort of how they are. They're all a little bit edgy in a way. So it gives this constant feeling of like moving things forward because it absolutely has to. Now, if I look at Critical Role, what I see with them is that like they're all professionals and they understand storytelling on a certain level to where there's, whether it's banter between the characters, whether it's Matt Mercer, the DM, presenting new information, it always feels like there are rarely lulls in what is happening in the story. The story always is moving forward. And it's usually at a pretty comfortable and fairly quick pace, I would say. Again, even if they're having these intimate moments, the moments are so powerful in their intimacy that it gives this kind of driving feel to the story, which is really cool. And it's a testament to the skill of all the players and, of course, Matt, the DM. And one thing that I've seen with Matt, he's pretty good about, on occasion, like just like Chris does, he'll drop something in front of the players that is a challenge or something interesting for them to deal with. But that's not, it doesn't feel like that's his like MO. He does it occasionally, but that's not the way he rolls usually. What he really likes to do is let the characters have their space, because he's an actor. He is a voice actor and an actor, and he understands the value of creating space for the other players. They all do that for each other, so that whoever feels like it's their moment will step forward and have a moment as their character. Whether they're talking to someone else or whether they're engaging with the environment, engaging with the NPCs, it has this really beautiful organic flow. So their pacing is, I would say their pacing is natural, but it's very organic and it moves forward at a comfortable drive. That's like if you're reading a book, it's like you never get to a point in the book where you're kind of like, oh, okay, well, this is sort of slow. Now, that I shouldn't say that. That's not fair, because there are certainly books that might have periods where they're giving you information to fill the story in, but it's not driving the story forward, so it can get slow. So scratch that. That was probably a really bad example. Let me just go back to Critical Role and their pacing. One of the things that they do that's really good is Matt is great at creating tension. This is what he does. He does it in two ways. One, he uses music, a soundtrack in the background. If you haven't realized it already, and you've watched lots of Critical Role, a big part of the tension and the storytelling in their games is, in fact, the soundtrack that Matt's playing in the background. It has an effect. It's just like a good movie. A good movie, if it has a really awesome soundtrack, that can make or break a good movie, you know? You can have a great story with great actors. If you have a crummy soundtrack, the movie's kind of not going to be that great. Whereas you can have like a mediocre story to mediocre characters and actors with a great soundtrack, and it can make it absolutely amazing. So Matt is really good about creating tension by the way he describes things, as well as having sort of his music and the mood that he creates through the music and so forth, and the atmosphere he creates. Chris Perkins creates tension by just like hammering the party with stuff like just when they least expect it. That's kind of the feel that you have. Like just when they least expect it in dice camera action, something is going to happen. Now with the Chain of Acheron, I haven't seen, there's only been 10 sessions. I haven't had enough of a chance to see how that happens. With something like the Adventure Zone, because it's a podcast, a lot of it is done through editing. I've noticed that. I believe, now I don't think they do it all the time, but I've noticed points where I'm pretty sure they take bits of like meaningless banter and chop it out, I think. I could be wrong about that, but that's how it seems sometimes. Again, they're pros and they're audio pros too, so they understand, because they've been doing podcasts for a long time, they get the fact that you kind of have to fill the space. Now, there's something to be said about leaving an opening for a moment. You can do that effectively if you understand how to do it. But that's for drama. That doesn't necessarily create tension, although it can. So, hey, I would love to... So, how is pacing, if you're a DM especially, is pacing something you think about? Is it something you're aware of if you're watching someone else's stream, like one of these D&D streams? Do you recognize when the tension rises or releases? I'm curious tell me what your thoughts are about tension and pacing, and you can share that information in the comments below this video. I hope to see you at a table someday. Until then, keep rolling 20s or 6s, depending on the game you're playing. And remember, it's your game. Play your way.